How can environmental degradation be included in economic growth metrics? Imagine trying to measure how well a country is doing by looking only at how much stuff it makes and sells. That's what gross domestic product, or GDP, does. But it doesn't tell us if the environment is getting worse while the economy grows. If we cut down forests, pollute water, or use up minerals, those costs aren't shown in traditional numbers. So, how can we include these environmental costs when measuring economic growth? That's what we're here to find out. One way is to change how we count economic activity by adding environmental data to the usual economic numbers. This is called environmental economic accounting. Think of it like keeping two sets of books, one for money and one for natural resources. The system of environmental economic accounting, or SEEA, is a framework that links environmental data with economic statistics. It tracks natural resources like forests, water, and minerals, and shows how they are being used or depleted. This helps us see a more complete picture of how well the economy is doing, including the costs of environmental damage. Another approach is to adjust gross domestic product by subtracting the value of natural resources that are lost or damaged. For example, if a country cuts down a forest, it loses the benefits that forest provided, like clean air, water, and timber. By estimating the economic value of these losses and subtracting them from GDP, we get a clearer idea of true economic progress. This adjusted measure is sometimes called green gross domestic product, or green GDP. It shows whether growth is sustainable or just causing harm that will cost more later. We can also use environmental indicators alongside traditional economic measures. These include things like carbon dioxide emissions, levels of pollution, or loss of biodiversity. Combining these indicators with GDP gives us a more rounded view of growth. For example, a country might have high GDP growth but also high pollution levels, which signals that growth might not be sustainable. Using these indicators helps policymakers see the trade-offs and make better decisions. Looking at how different sectors impact the environment is another way to include environmental degradation. By analyzing the economic complexity of sectors, we can see which industries are cleaner or dirtier. More advanced economies often adopt cleaner technologies, reducing pollution even as they produce more goods. This can be reflected in growth measures that account for environmental impact, encouraging industries to become more sustainable. Finally, we can include the costs of externalities. These are the hidden costs of pollution or climate change that aren't paid directly by the polluters. For example, health problems caused by pollution or the costs of extreme weather events linked to climate change. When these costs are added into economic measurements, it shows a more truthful picture of how growth affects society and the environment. In practical terms, countries can calculate green gross domestic product by estimating environmental degradation costs and subtracting them from traditional GDP. Satellite accounts can also be used to track environmental assets and liabilities over time. Policymakers then use these adjusted numbers to promote sustainable growth, investing in cleaner energy, better waste management, and greener technologies. So, including environmental degradation in economic growth metrics means expanding our usual numbers to reflect the true costs of growth. It involves natural capital accounting, adjusting traditional measures, and using environmental indicators. This way, we get a clearer picture of how well a country is doing, not just in economic terms but in maintaining a healthy environment for the future.